Skinwalkers seem to be the boogeyman most people are scared of running into. But what happens when you don't get to make that choice? What happens when the Skinwalker decides to show up at your front door? Welcome back to the swamp, my friends, and welcome if you're new. Today I'm going to be sharing some creepy and allegedly true Skinwalker encounter horror stories that'll freak you out tonight. As always, if you have a story that you would like to share in a future video, be sure to submit it at swampdweller.net or on Reddit at r/thedarkswamp. I'd love to share your story with everyone here in the swamp, and get ready for these creepy and downright strange and allegedly true Skinwalker encounters. Hey everyone, just as a reminder, I'm a narrator on the Chilling app, the awesome horror app that features over 1,000 horror stories, over a dozen narrators, some of who you might know from YouTube, as well as full-length novels, exclusive series, and chilling originals. You can select and change the ambient sound and the backgrounds of the stories whenever you want without affecting the story you're listening to. And we release hours of new stories every single week. Click the link in the description to download and start your free trial today to see if you like it. Also, Chilling is always doing cool, exclusive giveaways. For the month of December, we are currently giving away a PlayStation 5 bundle. This includes a PS5, the disc version, Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 2, The Quarry, a Chilling t-shirt, and Chilling stickers. You can find more info using the link in the description. Best of luck. Skinwalker in the Ozarks by Rick. Hello, my name is Rick. I'm a teenage guy from Missouri. The story I'm about to share is something odd that happened to me and my friend Jeremiah while we were hunting in the Ozarks. We had tags for almost anything that could be found in the Ozarks, but we were primarily hoping to shoot an elk or just a big buck. Jeremiah is a Choctaw native, and his mother has always warned us about legends her parents and grandparents would tell her. Mostly stories about Sasquatch and shapeshifters. Neither of us really believed in them at the time, so we didn't take anything she said to heart. We felt like we were safe as long as we had our guns. We both carried 30-30 Marlin rifles and 44 Magnums, along with hunting knives, and we had sharpened them every single day. One day, when we went out hunting, we were sitting in our blinds and saw what appeared to be a mountain lion just walking around. Jeremiah aimed and was one breath away from pulling the trigger. But then the mountain lion sat down behind a tree and he couldn't get a good hit on him. So we waited for hours until something came out from that same tree. But it wasn't that same mountain lion. It was a bobcat. What the hell? I whispered in surprise. I swear it was a mountain lion that went behind that tree, Rick. I'm not losing my mind, Jeremiah said. We were trying to figure out why we saw a mountain lion go behind the tree and then see a bobcat step away from it. It doesn't make any sense. Now, most bobcats usually stay away from humans, but this one looked right at our blind and started walking directly toward us. It stopped in front of the blind under the window where we shot out. It got low to the ground and started to move its whole body like it was about to jump up into the window and pounce on us. Jeremiah took his 44 Magnum, stuck it out the window, and pointed it directly at the bobcat. "I'm gonna give you to the count of 3, he said. 1, 2... Right before he said 3, the bobcat got off and walked off as if he seemingly understood. He gave us a glance over his shoulder as if trying to intimidate us. So we started talking about this weird encounter that just happened, and later on laughed it off. But after we did some research, it might have been a shapeshifter or a skinwalker. This would explain why we saw a mountain lion go behind that tree and see a bobcat walk out in its place. And why the bobcat was trying to intimidate us and how it seemingly understood Jeremiah's threat. After that day, I learned to never take a simple legend with a grain of salt. Listen to your elders. Illinois Deer Season by Anonymous. It was deer season in Illinois, and we were all ready to go. My uncle and I had been out checking tree stands and areas as we had poaching problems in these woods. We get all that done, and he calls me to tell me that he lost his wallet somewhere. As I lived closer to the woods, I told him I'd look for it in the woods. Keep in mind, it was about 8 o'clock. I had never been scared of dark or the woods, but I went out to check the trail he had walked. I get to the final leg and see something in the bottom walking, or more like stalking. It was sniffing the ground and would look around and see me with my flashlight. Luckily, my fight or flight kicked in, and I headed for the truck as fast as I could. I get to the car and hear weird screaming. It's getting louder and closer. I thought to hell with this and I jumped into the car. As I slammed the door, something ran right past me, into the other section of the woods. I was frozen but finally turned the keys on the ignition, and I could see something staring at me from behind the trees with my headlights flashing on it. Now, I have a hard time going to those woods alone, and years later after this happened, my aunt one day called me to say she saw a black figure walking in the field that looked like it had a crow's head. She looked back again and it was gone. After she told me this, her woods mysteriously caught fire and almost burned down the rest of everything else. She swears she heard voices and weird noises all night, something tapping on the house, and her dog was always losing its mind. So we put cameras up outside of her house, and I think we may have caught a glimpse of this black figure on camera. But when we tried to play it back, and try to get the footage and all that good stuff, the camera was offline, and they mysteriously quit working ever since. There is an old story about a man whose wife took all his money and buried it in these woods. He took her out to the woods, killed her, and dug holes all over looking for the money. If you go out in those woods, you can see low spots everywhere. I don't know what's in those woods, but there's something wrong. I've started hunting different areas, and I don't think I'll ever go there. I don't know if it's a ghost, a demon, a skinwalker, or what's lurking in there, but it's unnatural, and it gives me the absolute goosebumps. A Story Impossible to Believe by HorrorFam08. My father has had some terrifying encounters with these entities, but this spine-chilling tale comes from my uncle, a man of faith who walked the fine line between traditional beliefs and his Christian religion. When my father told me this story, I wondered, could it be true? Would this actually happen? That part I'll leave up to you. My father had 5 brothers, my dad being the 6th and the youngest. Stories of witches and the dark side of Navajo beliefs had come from his family, as did my mother's side. My uncle had worked for many churches, usually as a hired hand who could fix almost anything. Everything from cars to the usual maintenance needed in a home. He was the man you needed. One summer, while working on the water lines outside of a church, a pastor friend had come looking for him in need of answering a question and in need of some advice. Being a good friend, my uncle said he looked uncomfortable with what he was about to ask. The pastor asked him if he knew anything of skinwalkers. He was taken aback by this question and surprised that this friend would ask such a question. Then, coming to terms with his question, he was never so shocked. Many in his close group of friends sometimes asked what they were. Not trying to be rude, he asked the pastor why he wanted to know such things. The pastor begins to tell him a shocking story that would make anyone wonder if it actually happened. The pastor had become friends with a family on the Navajo reservation. For the exact location, I will not say. He had become relatively close with his mother and father since these were the first real friends he had made since moving to the reservation. The family was intimate with each other. They had a total of 4 kids and had an extended family around the area. Their only problem child was their youngest son, who sometimes would get in trouble with local law enforcement. At this point, he has gotten involved in a local gang. The father told him this gang was ruthless and at times violent. The family pleaded with the son to leave the gang and hoped he would get away, but to no avail. The son had been with that gang for about a year and had become close with the leader. The leader, the son explained, he was a very violent and at times crazy individual, and this made him very feared. The gang members whispered rumors that the leader dabbled in witchcraft rather than skinwalking. Unfazed by this, the son still stayed. Then one night, while hanging out at a member's house, the leader revealed that he did actually practice black magic, and asked the son if he wanted to learn. Telling him yes, he wanted to know, the leader told him to meet at a destination later in the week. When the day came, the son had driven out to where the leader told him to meet. They had met at a cemetery. The son, at this point, was nervous and scared. The leader showed up a few minutes later and they both walked down to the cemetery. Now in this part, I will not explain traditional speaking. It's taboo to explain what went on, but what I will say is that they did horrifying things. The son left the gang, distanced himself from the entire crew, and became a born-again Christian. The son had not made contact with anyone until one night while in a shopping store. The son had not seen anyone from the gang for quite a few months at this point. This night of all nights, he had run into the leader. Shocked, the son tried to ignore him but was cornered by him, and he said the leader was angry with him and told him he betrayed him and that he was going to teach him, sending a cold chill down his spine. The leader told him to watch his back. Wherever he went, he would find him. Terrified, the son had come to the pastor and asked him what he should do. The pastor, somewhat shocked, didn't know what to do but told him to keep faith in his beliefs and everything should be okay. As soon as the pastor was done with the story, my uncle told him to tell the son to seek out traditional spiritual help and take it from there. Months had passed when my uncle asked about the son. The pastor said that he had given his advice and now they were living peacefully outside the reservation. You can believe the story if you want, but take this warning. Don't look for what's in the dark because there is always something out there that will answer back. My Family Skinwalker Story by Gun Builder 21. My brother left Kansas in 2011 to live with my grandparents in New Mexico to finish his college. He attended college in the neighboring town of Farmington. My grandparents lived in a city called Kirtland. My family is of Mexican descent, so there's always been a belief in the paranormal. There's always been a pretty strong belief in the paranormal in our family. However, Kirtland sits across the river from a Native American reservation, where it is primarily occupied by the Dene tribe, or better known as the Navajo. My brother worked at the hardware store in Farmington, and there he met many Native Americans that would tell ghost stories and share paranormal encounters. Still, only a select few would ever mention the word Skinwalker, mainly the ones who practice Christian beliefs. According to their culture, it is a bad omen if you talk about them, so my brother knew of them, but he never imagined that he would ever meet one. Then, in late April, at somewhere around 11 p.m., my brother was watching TV in his room when he heard the gravel on my grandparents' driveway shuffle around. My brother unsuspectedly thought it was my grandma letting the dog out to use the restroom, but when he saw the clock and noticed that it was past 11 p.m., he noticed it was far too late for my grandma to still be awake. He decided to peek through the blinds. What he saw next shocked him to his core. This creature crawling across the driveway had substantial hind legs, a massive torso, and a canine-shaped head, and a short snout. This thing crawled across the driveway, stopped dead in its tracks, shot straight up on its hind legs, looked over at the window where my brother was, and began to sniff the air. My brother said he felt like he was in a trance and remembered it had bright yellow eyes that he could quickly make out 15 yards away. He said that after it stood there for a good amount of time, it dropped back on all fours, ran towards the property gate, crawled over it, but he recalled it taking these enormous strides that made it move extremely fast. My brother called me the following day, startled by what he had seen the night before. He told me how he didn't sleep and what he saw. I've known my brother, and we have been incredibly close most of my life. I could tell he was not lying. His demeanor showed that he was dead serious about what he was telling me, and at one point he questioned his own sanity. But the next day he said his native friends at work and those who didn't fear talking about unexplained things like this told him what he probably saw. But that was not the only time this thing showed itself. Apparently in mid-May, my brother was graduating from college. We had all come from Colorado. We were staying in a pop-up camper behind the house that night. They arrived and everyone was asleep when the creature showed itself again. But this time, the person who noticed it was my grandmother. She was awakened by the sound of something walking across the house outside. She said she looked out the window. She looked into the camper in the backyard, lit by the moonlight, and the motion lit by the garage. She remembered distinctly seeing a silhouette standing in the middle of the trailer where there were two of my cousins and uncle sleeping. My grandmother said she thought it was my uncle because it looked very big, and my uncle was around 6'3", 260 pounds. And this thing was standing there watching them sleep. My cousin did say he felt like somebody was standing over them watching them while he slept, but he could not work up the nerve to open his eyes. We were all baffled at what was going on. Everyone in our family had concluded that it was a demon and that something needed to be done. But according to Navajo legend, a skinwalker is a medicine man who went down a dark path and decided to practice black magic but can also work as a curse to put on people or a land by an evil medicine doctor. My brother's friends had asked my brother if my grandparents lived close to the river, and my brother indeed said yes. My grandparents lived 2 blocks away from a river. They told him that these evil medicine doctors used that river for many rituals because of the energy it carries. They said the only way you can become a Skinwalker is to kill someone you are close with in your family. And once you become a Skinwalker, the animal pelt you wear is what your shape shifts into. These creatures are known among the native tribes of New Mexico, Nevada, Utah, and Arizona. They fear it, and with good reason, because with it, death follows. But according to their Navajo beliefs, since we are not Native Americans from those lands, the creature can't harm us. According to their knowledge, it can only hurt those who believe it and those of native descent. Thanks for listening to these creepy and allegedly true encounters with Skinwalker creatures. If you enjoyed these stories, please be sure to elbow that like button in the face so it feels it. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. I upload videos like this almost every single day on all things natural and supernatural. If you have a story that you would like to share in a future episode, be sure to submit it at swampdweller.net or on Reddit at r/thedarkswamp. I'd love to share your story with everyone here in the swamp. I'd love to know in the comments down below what story was your favorite tonight. It helps me pick better stories in the future, and I also love seeing what stories you guys gravitate to. If you're on the go but don't have YouTube Premium but still want to download and listen to your favorite Swamp Dweller scary stories no matter where you are, you can download them absolutely free from Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and pretty much everywhere else you find your favorite podcast online. If you made it all the way to the end, be sure to comment the code word Family Man Skinwalker to confuse people in the comments and to let me know how many of you made it to the end. Thank you guys so much for supporting the swamp the way you do. Be sure to join me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all that good stuff for updates outside of YouTube, and I'll see you all soon with another creepy episode.